Hello and welcome to the Healthy Business Podcast. I am super excited to welcome the lovely Helen Hardware today because we're going to be having a chat on confidence, self-esteem, not feeling good enough, and all those things, those mind monkeys that kind of come up. So Helen is a soulful confidence coach, and I'm, as I said, really excited to be chatting to you today. So welcome, Helen. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
Oh, it's always lovely to chat to other people, and I think especially in this day and age where, confidence is such a huge thing. And I think over the last year and a half where people have been taking on lots of different things and our boundaries have been stretched, confidence has been knocked a bit as well, hasn't it? And just really kind of leaning into that and finding out a little bit more about how we can step into being amazing at what we do and serving the people that we're here to serve.
Yeah, and that's what I love about what I do, is just seeing people transform into the best version of themselves.
So what I'd love to do is to kind of start with, what does a healthy business mean to you?
So I would say a healthy business is about how it makes you feel. It's about feeling free. It's about feeling energized. It's about feeling passionate and releasing all of those happy vibrations, happy emotions. So it should really light you up. So it's about having a balance between your business and your life and just being able to do the thing you do and enjoy it. So I was recently talking on a podcast, and the interviewer was talking about the fact that since they'd set up their business, they never had that feeling of, oh God, I don't want to get up and go to work today. So it should always light you up. And I think that's a healthy business.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of people listening to this will resonate with that. It's one of the reasons that we do set up our own businesses, isn't it? Is that we want to enjoy what we're doing and have that freedom, that energy, and just really feel kind of aligned to what we're doing and how we do it.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about kind of how you came into what you're doing, of kind of that confidence piece as well, because your background is quite different.
Yeah, so I started out as a lawyer back in my early 20s. But the truth was that I didn't really feel good enough to be a lawyer. And I had a belief that people like me didn't become lawyers. That was, bless her heart, down to my grandmother telling me that. Don't think she meant it to have the big impact that it did, but it certainly planted a seed. And I quit after 15 months with no confidence left. And I went into a career in financial services and sort of built up my confidence. And then about 4 years ago, I hit burnout. And a lot of that was caused by the anxiety I was experiencing from a promotion. I just didn't feel good enough yet again. I was comparing myself against my peers. And I really got myself quite worked up. Perfectionism coming in. I expected myself to know everything from day one. Of course, I didn't. But what that led to, that burnout, was very much a spiritual awakening and a knowing that I needed to have my own business and that I wanted to have my own business. So I'd trained as a yoga teacher. So I thought, I'll teach yoga online. That sounds like a great thing to do. And it wasn't as big 4 years ago as it is now since the pandemic. But when it came to putting myself out there, I couldn't do it. I'd done an expensive marketing course, learned all the theory, but as soon as it came to saying, this is what I want to do and getting visible online, I hit a brick wall and I couldn't do it. And so I walked away, tail between my legs, and said, well, at least I've tried. And I really hadn't. So that gnawing feeling of wanting a business didn't go away. And then a couple of years later, I retrained as a hypnotherapist. And when I came to put myself out there, guess what happened? All the same stuff, all the same beliefs came on. I thought, right, I've got to do something about this. So I went on a personal journey of clearing my blocks, finding what my blocks were, finding my beliefs and really clearing it, and just got to the heart of who I was. And it was like somebody turned a key. All of a sudden, I just unleashed this version of me that was me instead of needing to wear a mask. And I got really angry at all this time that I'd wasted, all this time that society had been telling me that I wasn't good enough to do the things that I wanted to do. And I just didn't want anybody else to go through that. And I just wanted other women to know that they are good enough. And over time, I noticed a lot of my clients, because I'd specialized in confidence, a lot of my clients were other entrepreneurs who were having that same fears that I'd conquered. So that's how I kind of niched down into helping spiritual entrepreneurs get visible in their business, or have the confidence to get visible.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that something from generally from our childhood, or little seeds that have been planted from relatives or other people that just sit with us and can really have a massive impact on, how we show up as, as adults. And I think, even we've come from, well-educated background, you've done a degree in law, like you have to have that certain level to be able to, go out and do that. But confidence, it's the mindset piece, it's that inner, I suppose, understanding that actually is the key. As you say, it's unlocking that key into success, whether that's business success, whether that's lifestyle success. And it all comes back to that belief. It all comes back to confidence. And I can totally relate to that, being, female in sport, growing up in a very competitive male dominated environment. There was always this feeling that women had to work harder. And that's transcribed, and it's taken me a really long time. And I think, whatever it is, there's always mindset monkeys. Every time we kind of grow and develop and try new things, there's always mindset monkeys, and we have to get out of our own way. But actually, until we unlock that, until we understand that real root cause, not the one that other people are telling us kind of peripherally, but actually that real root cause, it generally does come back to childhood, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. And before our formative years, I mean, some people say it's from 2 to 12. I would say it goes back earlier and to a bit later as well. I have a surprising number of clients that will regress automatically to being in utero, in the womb, and the things that they experienced or their parents experienced then can form that limiting belief even before you've been born. So those formative years, we're in a brainwave which is very similar to hypnosis. So we're like sponges, we're absorbing everything around us, and the mind tries to understand and interpret what it's experiencing. So if something that makes us feel uncomfortable happens, the mind says, don't like that, didn't feel very good, I don't want to feel that way again, so I'm going to protect you from it. And that's when it forms a self-limiting belief. So from an experience that we have, it will form a judgment about that experience, or more likely about our role or our position in that experience. And that then becomes those beliefs that I can't do something, or I'm not good enough.
So fascinating. I love the kind of mindset work. It's just, yeah, it's been a massive shift in sort of my business success, my business growth, of kind of really understanding that side of things. And I've always known about mindset. I think, from playing sport at a really high level, having massive injuries, it's always come down to me having to make those changes to then get out of my own way to then go on and see success. But it's something that a lot of us kind of create our normal, we're living in an everyday life, and that becomes our normal lives. And it's not until you delve into that or unpick or start questioning why we're not seeing things, or we seem to have those same patterns that, as you said, with your kind of becoming a yoga teacher, didn't quite work out in the way that you thought it might do. Going back to retrain into something else didn't quite work out. And it's seeing that recycled pattern, I think, that then, when you become aware of it, you start realizing what potentially those triggers could be. But so many of us never do actually go, okay, well, what can I do about it? So that's what I'd love to delve into a bit more today, is that, if people are kind of listening to this and thinking, hang on a second, listening to you is starting to have those little triggers that maybe there is a bit of a pattern here. What can people do? So what ways could they start shifting that mindset, or, recognizing how something could potentially change for the better?
So I think it very much depends on whether the block or the belief is available in the conscious mind, or whether it's something that's buried really deep in the unconscious mind. And a lot of the time we have an inkling from the conscious mind. And in that case, really simple things like journaling, affirmations, writing ourselves, younger selves, letters of forgiveness, writing people that have hurt us letters of forgiveness. All those things can actually be very liberating if you are consciously aware to some extent of what that belief is. But what I find a lot with my clients is, when I say, and I should quantify that, when I say write a letter, I don't mean send it. Write the letter, burn it. I should quantify that one. Because just the burning it is very releasing. You've got out what you wanted to say. You've had your argument with a blank piece of paper. But what I see a lot with clients is the blocks are buried in the subconscious mind. They're things that we just have no idea that they're there. And they can be things that are caused by the most inconsequential, tiny, throwaway thing from our childhood, but where we've gone, oh, okay, that defines who I am in some way. Now that's happened, say, at an unconscious level. And then because it creates like a program in the mind. So if the mind's a bit like a phone, we have various programs running on it, they're your apps. So we then go through the day-to-day experience looking for things to reconfirm that perspective. So the example I like to use is reading. If you were asked to stand up and read as a child in class and you tripped over a word, or the teacher corrected you, or somebody just sniggered in the class, excuse me, sorry. The mind forms a belief that that's uncomfortable. We don't like that. We might feel shameful. And the mind wants to stop us from feeling that way again. So what happens then is that turns into a belief of, I can't stand up and speak in public. So that's when, as an adult, we say, oh no, I can't give a presentation, or I can't do a Facebook Live. Well, we can all do those things. It's just a belief inside of us. But quite often, that thing that happened when we were 6 years old was really small. Our conscious minds long ago let go of it, but it's still there, buried in the subconscious mind as a program. And every other time that we've had an experience where we felt that same level of discomfort, it's reconfirmed that same belief over and over and over. So I very much work in the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind with my clients. I work with hypnosis to get to what those beliefs are, and then we do the healing work.
Amazing. It's so interesting of just that level, I think, isn't it? As you say, something from kind of a little comment or a little snigger from, really, really young age to still have an impact on us in an adult. And you're right, it's the way the brain works, and it's the way that we just store things. So it is about reprogramming that, and I suppose refinding that confidence again, isn't it? So that you reset the mind to believe that you can go and do it, and you can stand up and do that presentation. And I know a lot of people, especially from a kind of marketing perspective, being visible, being online is one of those things that so many people struggle with. And I found it really hard to start with, because it's different when you're putting yourself out there. It's not the same as, being behind a corporate brand or something like that. It's about you, and that's personal. And that potentially opens you up to judgment and people's opinions and all that kind of good stuff. And that can feel quite scary. For me, I always go back to the, well, what happens if I don't do that? Because there are loads of these people that I can help. And if they're not seeing me, then the impact of that is that they're not going to be able to get that education or whatever it is. But I know it's a huge block. I know there's a lot of people that do, as I said, really struggle with that idea of being visible online. Is that something that you kind of hear a lot of people as well? Because obviously you work with coaches and things as well too.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, originally I looked around at my peers. I'd done a lot of different trainings over the years, whether it was yoga teaching or Reiki healing, crystal healing, and then obviously hypnotherapy. And I looked around at the number of people that I trained with and how many of them really got past that fear, and how many were being held back by that fear of judgment, as you talked about. What are other people going to think? Fear of failure, which actually is still fear of judgment. We might think of them as being different, but it's not the failure that we're really scared of. It's the uncomfortable feeling that goes along with that, which is usually shame. And that's linked to worrying about what other people are going to think, because if we're not worried what they're going to think, we tend not to feel shame. And then there's also fear of success can be another one as well. What if I am successful and I don't have any time for my family? Or we have a belief that in some way wealthy people are bad or have done something unethical to get there as well. So all those fears about getting yourself out there are tangible things. They really do exist, and lots of entrepreneurs do. And like you say, it's because we're selling ourselves. We're becoming a personal brand. And if somebody says no, or it doesn't work out, we take that as a personal rejection, or feel like we are a failure, as opposed to something I've tried didn't work out. I don't like to use the word failed.
Yeah, you learn so much by things not quite going your way as to, yeah, in fact, I think you learn more by things not going your own way than by, when something works, you don't ever go back to analyze why. We move on to the next thing, especially as business owners. Whereas it's actually just as important to analyze why things don't work, just as much as it is to analyze when they do work. But yeah, failure is one of those words, I think, that is that fear of judgment, as you said, but also brings fear to a certain extent, that it's something that is, again, it's a mindset stuff, isn't it? That failure of, actually, what are you failing in? It's other people's perception of failure rather than necessarily ours, because you're always learning. I remember being asked, this was years ago when I was back in the corporate world, of, is there anything that I regret? And I remember thinking about it for a little while, and actually there is nothing that I regret, because you learn so much from whatever it is. Yes, there's potentially different choices that you'd make depending on different things, but actually I wouldn't have changed anything, because they've happened for a reason. And you learn from that. It's part of your journey, it's part of your story. And I think that makes you more of an interesting person to a certain extent, and people can relate to that. But yeah, I think it's a really tough one, isn't it? When people, if someone's listening to this and they're feeling really low, they're feeling like everyone's kind of giving them their opinions and things might not be going the way that they want to. A lot of people have really struggled from a business perspective over the last, year and a half of kind of pandemic things that we've been kind of living through, where businesses have been closed. We've had to change, that lovely word pivot that keeps coming up. And, it can feel really hard. It can feel really draining. What would you suggest as a kind of next steps if someone's just listening to this and kind of going, I just don't know which way to turn. I just feel I just don't have the confidence to kind of try anything at the moment.
So I think it's going back to what you said there about that everybody's offering their opinion. First thing, stop listening to the opinions, unsubscribe, clear your mailing list, stop following people on social media, take a detox, because there are so many people telling you what you should be doing, or telling you how great they're doing it. And a lot of us are comparing ourselves against that and feeling like we're either not as good, or we're never going to be as good, or just thinking, well, they're 10 steps on from me, so why even try? So I think first thing is, take that deep breath, just take a pause. And it's okay to not want to do something right now. It's okay to say, actually, you know what, I need to regroup my energy and rediscover who I am. And I think that's something I see a lot with my clients, is people often don't know who they really are. They've spent so many years putting on labels and masks of who they feel they should be, that they've lost the sense of who they authentically are deep inside, and what it is that they want to say, or they feel that they can't say it because nobody wants to listen. So in the current environment, I would say take that pressure off yourself and pause. But if it is something that you do want to go ahead and you do want to take action, but maybe you're struggling with your confidence, is assessing whether it is confidence, which is really your belief in your ability to take a particular action or to do something, or whether it is self-esteem, which is your own personal value, whether you're actually saying, I'm not good enough to do this, or whether you're saying, I don't have the skills to take that step. And they're very different things. So you can learn to practice the skills. And that's where a lot of coaches will say, just take the action. Confidence comes from taking action. And I agree, it does. But actually, what I'm working with my clients isn't really confidence. We talk about that word and use it very generally and very broadly. But what I actually do is self-esteem. It's that knowing that you are good enough at a soul level. And when you know that you're good enough, actually, it makes those failures, if you want to use that word, or any, detours along the path, seem less personal, less of a rejection. You recognize that sometimes not your message isn't for everybody. And it's that when you know that you're good enough, suddenly you recognize that actually, if I don't know how to take that step, it's okay. I can learn, I can practice, and I'll get there. But when you don't believe that you're good enough in who you are, you'll never get to that level. And so it's that I would recommend that people start to address.
I love that. Some really, really great advice there. And one of the things that we were talking about before we came online actually was alignment. And you have to have that alignment of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and the people that you want to work with. And I talk a lot about with my clients that actually your ideal client is someone you want to work with. It's not someone who you think you should be working with. And it's the same about business. You know, we've all got different goals, we've all got different values. And that means the way that you run your business is never going to be the same way as anybody else. There is no cookie cutter approach. It is about aligning your values, your goals, and building a business in a way that works for you. And, you know, I can give you all the tools, you can give all the tools on a mindset piece, but it's combining all of that. It has to feel energetically good to be successful. You know, if there's something that is off alignment, if there's something that isn't quite working for you, spending that time to work out what it is, making those changes, being really honest with yourself. You know, one of the reasons we're business owners, we're CEO of our business, we get to choose how we run our business. And you can make changes and you can make them pretty quickly. And I think, you know, that alignment piece is so vital, isn't it?
It is. And I think, it's when we're not being true to ourselves that we create these energetic blocks around ourselves. And a lot of my clients say they feel like there's an invisible wall or a glass tube around them or something like that they're pushing up against, but they just can't bring themselves to get past it and take action. They're procrastinating and they just don't know why or how to get past it. So that's exactly what we work on, is to release those blocks, get them into alignment by uncovering who they are authentically. We clear all those beliefs that they're not good enough to find out who they are at a soul level and enable them to fall in love with themselves. And when you do that, suddenly the world becomes a much less intimidating place and a much more empowered place.
And then builds that sort of confidence piece then there to put yourself out as you, as your authentic self, which is really important. And then I think by that you then start attracting the people who have those similar values that align with what you are talking about. And that's when that real positive energy, that success in business really comes in, because you're talking in a way that you feel alive about, and that will speak to certain people and they are your ideal clients. And that's for me is what becomes really exciting, is that you should never try and attract everybody, because then you attract no one. And so really understanding yourself, really understanding, you know, what it is about you. Quite often our clients are a version of ourselves at some point. So yeah, it's really interesting, I think, this sort of whole alignment piece as to how that fits around business success and, you know, living in a healthy business way. We were talking right at the beginning around, you know, feeling free, having that energy. That all does come down to alignment, I think.
It does. And I think it's also about, once you're empowered in who you are, knowing that you're safe to speak your truth. I think that's kind of step one, is knowing that you're good enough. Step two is being able to speak your truth. And I see a lot with clients that people say, well, nobody wants to hear what I've got to say, or, for some reason, I don't feel like I can say what I want to say and I don't know why. And a lot of that with my clients, we use a lot of past life regression. And when we go back to past lives, I specialize in helping spiritual entrepreneurs, and that might not necessarily be spiritual activities in their business. They may be spiritually inspired, but if we've been persecuted in a past life for being a healer in some way, or for a political message that we've wanted to communicate, whatever that is, if we've been persecuted, rejected, or even killed for speaking out or doing our job, we tend to come into this life with a feeling that it's just not safe to be visible and put it out there. So I do a lot of past life healing with clients as well, to find those experiences in past lives. Then we can let it go. We can break that energetic connection to those past lives. And then that really is very liberating, that we feel empowered. Because in this life, let's face it, almost all of us live in a place where we are safe to say our message. We're not going to be persecuted or killed for it. I'm not saying there aren't pockets of the world where that maybe still happens, very tragically. But it is about finding your tribe. And the internet gives us that. We're not cavemen anymore. When we were cavemen, if we were rejected from our community, it was very hard to survive, because there was no one to take care of us if we got sick, and we needed the hunters to make sure we got enough food, and the gatherers. And it took a community to be able to live. Whereas we still need a community. It's a personal, energetic thing that we need, but it might not be flossy down the road. It might be that your community is online, and you can find people who are going to share your values and your belief, even if everyone in your network doesn't necessarily agree or align to it. They're not your ideal clients. It's about finding your tribe.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. And it just, friends and family are amazing. They are there, but they quite often protect us and not necessarily in the right way. And just, I mean that with love for those of my family and friends who are listening. But I think you have to have people who understand why you're doing what you're doing, and that finding that space online. If you don't find it on the offline world, having that space online. It's one of the reasons that I set up my Healthy Business to Wealthy Business Facebook group, is that having that space for like-minded business owners in this industry to really connect, to collaborate, really build that kind of positive energy, to lift each other up when things are going not so well, but also to celebrate when things are going amazingly. Because when you're working on your own, it can feel really hard, it can feel really lonely. But knowing you've got that tribe of people that you can lean on, but also in return support back, it's so important, isn't it? And just having that energy, that positivity, the confidence, it builds us up. It kind of, lights us up more than anything as well. And again, that goes back to alignment, understanding who it is, what you are, what values you have, and then looking for that in other people around you. As I said, whether that's offline or online, but the access to so many more people online is amazing. So yeah, it's a great space to be. If we kind of take this into, some kind of top tips as to what would be your top tips to live a healthy business, live a healthy life, build that confidence, that getting visible online, what would you suggest? What were your sort of top tips?
Number one is always going to be, know that no matter what you've been through, you are good enough. Your past doesn't define you. And in fact, you can be empowered by even the worst experiences to go and create something wonderful. So I really do encourage people to step into following their dreams and doing exactly what they want to do by knowing that they are good enough. And there's all sorts of practical things that we can do, meditation and, bringing in our guides or connecting to our higher selves, journaling, and just having, downloading our thoughts, because we've got all these things going around our head. Sometimes just a simple brain dump into a journal can be very clearing. So yeah, make sure you have time every day to work on your personal development. It's not just about the business. You are the business. So if you don't take care of yourself on many levels, mentally, physically, emotionally, and I've been guilty of it. I noticed when I first set up my business, I got really into it, but I wasn't going out and getting as much exercise as I was before, because I was telling myself I didn't have time. So self-care is so important. It's got to be physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Take time every day for yourself.
I love that. I'm a big advocate of self-care, as lots of you listeners will know. It's so important that we look after ourselves in order to look after other people in the ways that we want to. And that's a huge part of being, having a healthy business, is putting you at the center of that and enabling you to show up in the best possible way. And I think confidence and self-belief, knowing that you're good enough, is a huge part of that. So Helen, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been fabulous to delve into this a little bit more, and I suppose just scratch the surface of what is a huge, huge topic. But yeah, I would love to share your details. So where can people find you if they're thinking, this is brilliant stuff, I want to find out a little bit more?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook, which is just facebook.com/Helen Hardware. And I've got a community, which is the Soulful Confidence Collective, which is a lovely supportive Facebook group where we all know that we're good enough. And if we people don't, then they soon do when they join. And then my website is helenhardware.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much again for joining me. I've loved chatting to you, and I hope you listeners have enjoyed it as well. I will see you on the next episode.